Hey everyone, this is the 9th and final micro lesson for Honors 112 in the Civilization sequence of the Honors College at the University of Maine, and I'm the instructor, Rob Glover. So we're going to talk today about what we've been doing this entire semester, which is creating a kind of set of best practices for writing and really focusing in on specific skills each week in an effort to build up those skills and give you a comprehensive set of tools that you can bring to your writing. So just to remind you of what we've done so far, we've adopted a philosophy on writing. Remember at the outset of this class, I said that there was this writer, Atul Gawande, who was a cancer surgeon, a public health researcher, a really talented writer in addition to those skills. And he had written this book called the Checklist Manifesto, in which he focused on the ways in which complex tasks could be broken up into their various parts, and we could be systematic in the way that we approach these complex tasks. And so this was really an effort to bring that to writing, right? Writing is a complex task. There's a series of skills. There's a series of things we have to do when we write. And so what we tried to do was focus on some of the foundational skills that I would hope anyone who's writing at the college level can utilize those skills and really be intentional about them in an effort to craft the best piece of writing that they can. And so we focused on those skills each week, and then you've engaged in application of those skills, practice again and again, and you've gotten feedback from me, and now you're doing that with the final paper, kind of putting all the pieces together. So we've done quite a lot. The question is, where do we go from here? What's next? And what I'm really asking you to do at the close of this class is to engage in a little bit of reflection. I know it's a busy time of year and you're a little bit overwhelmed. We all are. But it's time to kind of take a pause and think about your own writing and your future writing and engage in some self-assessment. Think about what is your future as a writer. So the first thing I would say is think about how you will be a writer, both in the remainder of your college career. You're only in your first year, almost all of you. So you're going to be continuing to write at the college level, but then think beyond that to your professional life. What is it that you want to do for a living, and what are some of the ways in which your writing skills will come into play there? I think it's sometimes a misnomer that if you're not a college professor or a lawyer, or you're not writing creative fiction, you're not a journalist, then you're not a writer. And what I encourage folks to understand is that we're all writers. We all write every day. And that the substance of that writing is different depending on what we do and how we do it. But every one of us has to think about how to communicate ideas through the written word. And so there's not any one of us that is not a writer. And so it's a really vital and important skill. So think about the ways in which you will need to write, not only in your college career, but in your professional life. Think about how you've grown as a writer this semester, right? What are the things that you feel like you learned? What are the skills that you focused in on most intensely as you worked on these assignments and this final larger writing assignment? Hopefully one of the things that this assignment has done is enable you to pinpoint areas for future growth, right? And we are all, even the best writers, can grow, can develop, can flourish further in certain areas. We all know what our weak spots are and what our strengths are, and hopefully this assignment has helped you think about that in an intentional way. So what do you think your areas are for future growth, and what is your plan to strengthen those skills? So good writing and improving our writing requires that we confront those areas in which we know that we struggle a little bit. And so I want you to think about how would you work to strengthen those skills. And then lastly, the last piece of the self-assessment is really more of an assessment of this process. And so it's kind of helpful for me. Well, it's very helpful for me, but it's less a self-assessment. But I want you to think about how effective or useful was this exercise in skill building, and also how it could be made more effective. So that's part of your writing self-assessment as well. Is to think about this assignment, and I would love constructive feedback or thoughts that you have about ways that we could be better in approaching writing instruction in the Honors College. So that's what I'm asking you to do with this final assignment. You don't have to put in a ton of time on it, but I do want you to take some time now that we're nearing the end of the semester and kind of take a step back and think about ways that you'll be writing in the future and ways that this assignment has helped you think about your own writing. So the Checklist Manifesto, which is available in the folder on Blackboard, and I circulated to all of you with the larger paper assignment, I want you to also think about ways in which you can continue to use this tool. Right? As we said, the idea of the Checklist Manifesto from Atul Gawande is that when we have any complex, multifaceted task, we have to break it up into its parts. So in his book, he focuses on things like the checklist that pilots use before they take off for a flight, or the checklist that construction and design firms and architects will use when they're building a building or building a structure. And in those areas, it's been really effective in reducing error, reducing plane crashes, reducing structural failure in buildings, because the things that go into making up that larger whole are attended to by the people involved. And Atul Gawande's goal was to bring over some of these ideas into health, into medicine, so that when a team of surgeons or a surgeon and their assistants are working on a patient, they're not making preventable mistakes, right? They're not engaging in shortcuts or just oversight that would result in harming a patient. And I think we can do this with writing as well. So the goal is to systematize and regularize your approach to the task of writing. Approach it with intentionality and forethought when you engage in application. Be thoughtful in what you're doing and how you're doing it. And feedback and critique are essential, and also practice and repetition, right? Part of being a better writer is just throwing yourself into the task and doing it again and again and again until you realize how to do it well, and you gain the skills to do it well consistently. And all of those tasks really can be facilitated through the use of a checklist. So the checklist that you have breaks out those different skills that we've talked about and ask you some questions. These are the types of questions that you could review as you're working on a piece of writing. The one thing that's not listed here, but is very important, is the process of idea development. Right? And so the checklist, writer's checklist that I passed out, also has a section on remembering to think about what is the claim that you're responding to, and what are you trying to say in response to it. So that's an important initial step. But then once we get into the process of writing, we have these different skills that we focused on throughout the course of the semester: the thesis statement, citation, sentence structure, paragraph structure, how to use evidence effectively, and how to write an effective conclusion. And ideally, what you have here is a checklist that you just kind of move through, right? And you can take forward with you to future forms of writing, particularly argumentative writing, in which you're defending a claim or advancing an argument. And you can be systematic in how you're approaching these different skills. And the hope is emerge with a better piece of writing. Now, moving forward, it's probably the case that a lot of the assessment of writing that you'll have, at least within the Honors College, is going to be a bit more holistic, right? It's going to look at the whole, and it might not dig into the individual skills quite as much unless there's a problem area or something that your instructor has identified as something you need to work on. But I encourage you to continue to think about this in terms of putting together the individual pieces, assembling the various components, and the specific skills that have to inform that larger totality that is the essay. The checklist is a tool, right? And it's something that you can use to approach your writing ultimately with an eye towards the total product, but you're breaking up the writing into its constituent parts. So I would say primarily to think about this checklist as a way to avoid overlooking things or breaking bad habits, but also to identify the areas in which you need to continue to work, right? That's one of the things that I've noticed using this assignment for a full year now, is it makes it easier for me as the instructor to identify where students strengths and weaknesses are, and hopefully it makes it easier for you too to figure out, where is your writing strong and where are some of the areas in which you need to continue to work. So I would encourage you to continue to use the writer's checklist if you find it helpful, even if the instructors that you have subsequently, they approach writing in a different way, or perhaps they have different expectations or different sets of skills that they want you to focus on. This isn't the totality of skills that you would need to be an effective writer. It's kind of just a start. It's like the ground floor in a house. So try to continue to learn from instructors and get their feedback on how you can improve your writing. But hopefully you'll find this checklist helpful and continue to use it. As I said, this series of assignments, this idea of approaching writing using Atul Gawande's Checklist Manifesto idea, is a pilot project that we did this year. It was a book that I picked up. I had heard Atul Gawande on a podcast talking about this and some of the different applications that individuals had found to use this idea of a checklist, and so I decided to bring it into my writing. I was also at a point in which I was thinking that the writing instruction that we do in the Honors College could be more systematic. Right? I was thinking what students learn in college composition in their first year, we're kind of charged with doing that in the Honors College. I was trying to think, what is a way to make this really systematic and straightforward and give students tools that they could take forward. So that's what I was trying to do. That was the objective of this assignment. But I'd love your feedback, right? If you have ideas about what worked really well, or what you liked about this, or what could be made better, what didn't work, I'd love to hear them. And even if it's critical, I love critical feedback. In a lot of ways, this whole idea to pilot a different way of doing writing instruction was inspired by the critical feedback that I was getting from my students about writing in the Honors College, and some larger conversations we were having about the ways in which some students really flourish in the Honors College with regard to writing, and other students want more guidance and instruction. And how can we do that? How can we do that in a way that meets our students, at least some of our students, where they're at? So I would love constructive criticism. If you want to set up a time to chat about this assignment and your thoughts about the course, we could do that. Or there is that final section in the writing self-assessment where if you want to give me some feedback and tell me what you think of this assignment, I'd love to hear it. And even if it's critical, as I said, constructive criticism is great and helps me be a better instructor, and hopefully helps students, subsequent students in the Honors College, have a better experience. So we'll wrap up there. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing your feedback, seeing your own thoughts on your kind of self-assessment and where you intend to go from here as a writer. Thanks very much.